Going to court to clean up a border sewage mess, why California's lawsuit is not the only legal challenge filed against the federal government.
So we use a lot of terms in this world: informant, cooperating witness, confidential human source, snitch.
More questions about the man who died after he was arrested by National City Police and the possible relationship between Earl McNeil and law enforcement.
California has always been a leader in gun safety.
New rules for concealed carry permits, the key training that could become mandatory in California. And The Revolution will be on stage, a San Diego production designed to challenge audience members.
The following items I refuse to make: cupcakes, particularly heart-shaped goods. I do not sell glitter.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. Former President Barack Obama is joining the midterm campaign season starting in California. He heads to Orange County Saturday, kicking off a campaign drive for 7 Democratic candidates. Those candidates are competing in Republican-held congressional districts that voted for Hillary Clinton back in 2016. Mike Levin is expected to join President Obama. Levin's running against Republican Diane Harkey in the race to replace Darrell Issa. Hundreds are expected to gather at San Diego's downtown waterfront park this evening to speak out on the current state of DACA, a program that protected young immigrants who were brought into the U.S. illegally as children. Today is the 1-year anniversary of President Trump's decision to rescind DACA. Trump gave Congress 6 months to pass new legislation, but as of today, nothing has been passed. DACA recipients say they want to remind the community that their lives are still in limbo.
We want to tell the rest of the 40,000 DACA recipients in San Diego that they're not alone and that there is support, and that we're going to keep fighting until we get permanent protection from deportation, until we have a path to citizenship, until we are recognized as human beings. We're going to keep on fighting.
Federal courts across the United States have differing opinions on the legality of DACA. Many expect the Supreme Court to rule on it by the end of the year. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh stressed the importance of judicial independence. Today was the second day of his confirmation hearing. He refused to answer questions about President Trump and whether the commander-in-chief could be subpoenaed or if he could pardon himself. Senator Dianne Feinstein also pressed him on abortion rights.
What would you say your position today is on a woman's right to choose?
As a judge, it is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. By it, I mean Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Been reaffirmed many times. Casey is precedent on precedent, which itself is an important factor to remember. And I understand the significance of the issue, the jurisprudential issue, and I understand the significance as best I can. I always try, and I do here, of the real-world effects of that decision, as I tried to do of all the decisions of my court and of the Supreme Court.
NPR's special coverage of the confirmation hearings continue on Morning Edition. You can hear more tomorrow on KPBS Radio. The state of California is suing the federal government over persistent sewage flows in the Tijuana River Valley. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has the story.
California's Attorney General and San Diego's Regional Water Quality Control Board say the federal government has repeatedly violated the Clean Water Act. Now, the lawsuit says that federal officials have failed to collect and divert contaminated renegade flows that foul U.S. waters. The Regional Board Executive Officer David Gibson says the federally owned sewage plant near the border has continually violated its discharge permits. And he says the federal government can't be fined, so the state is looking for improvements.
That includes intercepting and diverting those flows, monitoring them when they can't do so, and ensuring that the public is adequately informed and has a cleanup plan that they can count on.
The action was widely expected, and it's not the only legal challenge the federal government is facing. Imperial Beach, Chula Vista, and the Port of San Diego are also suing to stop contamination linked to cross-border sewage flows. The Surfrider Foundation has also filed an intent to sue. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The Sierra Club is suing San Diego County in an effort to block recently approved housing developments. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says the suit alleges the county's new climate action plan does not protect the region.
The Sierra Club litigation is one of several lawsuits filed against San Diego County to try to block thousands of new homes from being built in areas previously off limits for development. In an effort to increase San Diego's housing, the County Board of Supervisors is voting this year on plans to build 10,000 new homes in places like Elfin Forest, Harmony Grove, and Otay Mesa. Attorney Josh Chatton-Brown, representing the Sierra Club, says the county's new climate action plan requires measures to offset increased carbon emissions due to increased traffic. But he says those offsets to mitigate for more greenhouse gas emissions here in San Diego County could be in another country.
It allows the county to authorize essentially unlimited development in the county, provided that the developer obtains offsets from anywhere in the world.
The Sierra Club suit alleges those carbon offset measures would be difficult to enforce. The idea of offsetting carbon emissions by investing in lower emissions somewhere else is a model already in use under California's cap and trade laws. But a spokesman for California's Air Resources Board says he's unaware of any other California counties suggesting carbon offsets to justify increased greenhouse gases due to housing development. In the North County Bureau, Allison St. John, KPBS News.
A National City soldier died while deployed in Afghanistan. The Department of Defense says Staff Sergeant Diabanjo San Agustin died from a non-combat related injury yesterday. The 32-year-old soldier was assigned to a combat team from Fort Carson, Colorado. No other details have been released about his death. The investigation is ongoing. A state bill that would require all counties to require training to get a concealed gun carry permit is sitting on the governor's desk. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says that training is already required in San Diego.
State Assembly member Todd Gloria wants all municipalities in California to require live fire training to get a concealed carry permit.
I think that when you create higher standards and greater safety around guns, I think that's good for gun owners.
In San Diego County, there are just over 1,700 people with concealed carry permits. And the Sheriff's Department here already requires people to complete live fire training before getting a permit.
Yes, we have strong rules here in San Diego County thanks to Sheriff Gore, but that isn't true across California.
Gloria's office could only provide us with the names of 4 counties in California that don't specifically require live fire training. San Diego City Attorney Mara Elliott announced her support for the bill today.
We see the barrage of bloodshed from gun violence in the news every day. Accidental shootings, kids shooting kids. Enough is enough. It's time for action. Simply put, AB 2103 keeps us all safe.
We asked the city attorney if there have been any instances of accidental shootings or kids shooting each other tied to concealed carry permits in San Diego.
I don't know if I would link it to concealed weapon holders, but we are, of course, reading about kids using guns on other kids, whether accidental or intentional, every day.
Groups opposed to the legislation, like Political Action Committee San Diego County gun owners, say, quote, the purpose of this grandstanding is nothing more than an attempt to influence the public to believe that gun owners are dangerous and unsafe, which is untrue, end quote. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
You can weigh in on an upcoming annual report aimed at addressing racial profiling by police. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto tells us about tomorrow's subcommittee meeting of the State Racial and Identity Profiling Advisory Board.
The subcommittee is creating a guide for agencies to improve their local policies on preventing and addressing racial profiling. And it's looking for the public's thoughts on what to include. Andrea Guerrero of the nonprofit Alliance San Diego is the board's co-chair.
We'll be talking about the building blocks of a best practice guide. And we invite the public to share their thoughts about what should be in a best practice guide.
Community members can participate in the teleconference meeting at Alliance San Diego and other locations across the state. The meeting is the last in a series of discussions on various areas of policing, which the board is required to assess each year. The report is due in January. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
The district attorney is investigating the case of Earl McNeil, a man who died after being arrested by National City Police. But a group of activists say there's a conflict. Investigative reporter Claire Tragesser looked into their claim.
What we also want you to question is conflict of interest.
Last month, activist Tasha Williamson said the San Diego district attorney shouldn't investigate the death of Earl McNeil.
Because the DA also used Earl McNeil as a confidential informant.
A DA spokesman wrote in an email to KPBS that the California Attorney General says there is no basis to recuse itself from reviewing McNeil's death. But Williamson and other activists maintain the DA had an ongoing relationship with McNeil. So what exactly do we know about McNeil's history as an informant? First, let's define our terms. For help, let's turn to Alexandra Nadapoff, a law professor at UC Irvine, who is an expert on informants.
So we use a lot of terms in this world: informant, cooperating witness, confidential human source, snitch. And different jurisdictions, different departments, different police, different prosecutors, different groups use those terms differently. But they all boil down to the same idea, which is that the government is trading leniency and other benefits to criminal suspects or criminal defendants in exchange for something.
Both the DA and the San Diego Police Department wouldn't release any records or information about whether McNeil was an informant. But we do know McNeil was a witness in a high-profile murder case back in 2009.
So when an informant becomes a witness, that can trigger a deeper level of disclosure and scrutiny.
Professor Nadapoff says a trial requires the government to say everything they've offered a witness in exchange for testimony. And that's what happened with McNeil. So here's what we know. While other witnesses were given cooperating individual agreements that trade reduced jail time for information, McNeil did not receive one according to court records. When McNeil testified in front of a grand jury in 2009, the prosecutor Robert Hickey asked him, "Why are you willing to come in front of this jury and tell this story today?" McNeil responded saying, "I just feel that it's the right thing." But McNeil was offered something. The DA paid almost $30,000 in expenses over 2 years for him and his family to move away from San Diego. This is all detailed in another round of testimony he gave on the same case. A lawyer named Brad Patton cross-examined McNeil and went through a long list of things the DA had paid for. Did you receive $500 directly from somebody from the district attorney's office to be used for food and incidentals for 2 adults and 3 children, he asked. McNeil responded saying, "I'm not sure how much money it was, but I know we used to receive a payment. But like I said, I always give it to my wife because she had the bank account." Professor Nadapoff says if a witness or informant is given anything in exchange for testimony or information, that can create problems.
We permit the government to pay its witnesses, and we permit the government to pay its witnesses in the most valuable currency you can imagine, which is their own liberty.
A San Diego district attorney spokeswoman wouldn't provide an interview or comment on use of informants, quote, because of the ongoing review of McNeil's death.
Her name is Sugar. She's a gypsy vanner.
Though she doesn't look like one now, Gloria Collins was once a prosecutor for the San Diego DA's office for 25 years.
2005, I got this ranch. And I started coming in late and leaving early. And my boss called me up and said, "You can't do both."
She now lives on a Ramona ranch with horses, chickens, rabbits, and dogs. She also works part-time as a defense attorney and gives expert testimony on the use of informants.
Most jurors want to know why something happened, and often an informant can give you that. I always tell jurors that using a criminal informant is tantamount to using a picnic basket with a snake in it. Sometimes you need the basket, but you need to be very careful when you stick your hand in there.
Collins says prosecutors have to disclose everything they've offered a witness. That's what happened with McNeil. His payments from the DA are documented in court records. And that's what activists point to when they question a conflict of interest. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
To see a timeline of what we know happened on the day McNeil died, go to kpbs.org/timeline. Amazon opens its new tech hub tomorrow in University City. Here's a look inside the new offices. The tech giant says it will add 300 new jobs, covering everything from software development to digital entertainment. The Seattle-based company will more than double its tech force in San Diego with tomorrow's expansion. The company has 17 tech hubs nationwide. These tech hubs employ more than 17,000 people in North America. Seasonal sunny San Diego weather for now, but the heat returns this weekend. Julia Wyden has details in tonight's forecast.
Good evening. The dry weather persists here across Southern California. You can see on satellite and radar there's nothing to show you, and that's going to be the case for the next several days. You look off well to the east, up towards parts of southern Nevada, into Utah, Colorado, even towards New Mexico. There's still monsoonal moisture in place, and that's causing the occasional shower in that direction. We are going to see that getting cut off as we go through the next few days here. We're approaching the end of monsoon season. All that said, again, really not expecting to see a whole lot in the way of wet weather around here for tonight. Looking at partly cloudy to mostly clear skies. 62 tonight in Oceanside, 67 in Chula Vista. In San Diego, we'll drop down to 69 degrees. We will have some thickening of cloud cover as we head on into early on your Thursday morning. As we take you on into Thursday afternoon, though, that cloud cover will dissipate and will bring back the sunshine. San Diego high temp 79 degrees, Oceanside 79. Will be up to 106 in Borrego Springs. Again, a bit hotter out towards your desert areas. Let's check in on what's in store as we head into the weekend. Now, the jet stream is still well off to the north, and it's in this very zonal pattern, very flat in that west to east flow, but we are still staying dry here as we don't have any systems coming on through our region. Your forecast at the coast, high temps going to be in the upper 70s to low 80s for the rest of the weekend. It does warm up for Saturday and Sunday with more sunshine, highs in the mid 80s. Forecast as we take you inland. Temperature going to be very hot on Saturday, all the way up to 97 degrees, 96 for Sunday, 90 on Monday. And temperatures in the mountain region will be warming into the mid 80s for the weekend. Until then, mid 70s to low 80s. Your forecast in the deserts, temperatures will be soaring over the weekend. 111 for Saturday, 109 for Sunday. Lots of sunshine. We'll keep you updated with the latest. In the meantime, back to you, Ebony.
Thousands of Northern California teachers may be exempt from paying some taxes. It's another measure sitting on the governor's desk. As Sherry Gyro reports, the proposal could set a precedent for school districts across California.
Davis Joint Unified 590.
As Davis resident Ramona Hechtel shuffles through her school property tax bill.
Are you kidding me? I don't know how much more I can give you guys. No more. I'm sorry.
She reacts to news that her state senator, Bill Dodd of Northern California, wants to exempt public school teachers and district employees from paying special school taxes in her town.
We went to the senator and asked him to change the law.
Senator Dodd refused to comment on his bill, but school board member Alan Fernandez says the Davis district wants to attract more teachers and employees. Fernandez is also pushing to place a teacher's salary raise on the ballot.
It does so in a way that I think encourages our teachers to live and work in our community.
If you're going to pass a tax, you're going to vote for this, you better have skin in the game. You better pay the tax too.
Opponents say if the bill passes, it could set a new precedent for other school districts and government entities across the state.
To extract money from somebody else without paying the tax themselves, I think that offends people's sense of fairness.
Why are you imposing a tax on me that you're not going to pay? That's not fair.
Our tax code is replete with instances of really lack of fairness, if you will.
School officials blame the issue on the state for underfunding the Davis district. But Governor Jerry Brown and state retirement advocates disagree.
We're giving the schools
much more money than the rise in their costs.
Superintendent salaries to property to wherever else they decide to spend their money, and they need to take responsibility as local elected officials.
$620, $227. I have a $74 one.
Hechtel pays more than $1,500 a year for school taxes. Fernandez says a new law that would force her to pay even more could make a historic change to what he calls an unfair tax system. Hechtel worries other school districts might do the same, causing a surge in rent increases during the housing crisis in California.
It's going to come down to the young people in this town who are trying to get their start buying their first home.
At the state capitol, this is Sherry Gairo reporting.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, resistance inside. An anonymous senior Trump administration official writes that the president is detrimental to our republic. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
If you want to sit passively in a theater and watch a play, then Intermission's new production of Revolt, She Said Revolt Again, is not for you. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando speaks with two actresses about doing a play designed to challenge audiences.
Intermission describes itself as driven to tell stories that grab you and shake your insides. Revolt, She Said, Revolt Again, does just that with its experimental and inventive collection of vignettes.
This one says, stop being sexist, yeah? This one says, let's be equal, yeah?
It's very immersed. You're not coming to see a show and to look through the window. The show happens around you. It doesn't just happen on the stage. You are in it with us.
Cristiana Rosas and Carla Navarra are two of the actresses in the ensemble performing in the tiny, intimate space of Diversionary's Black Box Theater.
One of the reasons this play was chosen was to incorporate that intimacy into the storytelling.
In order to challenge the audience in a very direct and even at times uncomfortable manner.
No! Go on! I'm not marrying him. Give it a go. But he raped me. Yes, and I'm 12.
So definitely the intimacy of the space is playing for our purpose.
When you're not on the outside looking in, you're in this with us. That's what makes it so exciting, because if you're not going to be up for it, then we're going to find someone who's ready.
What audiences need to be ready for is a play that breaks rules to deliver a non-linear, multi-character narrative.
It really focuses on all the taboo topics that everybody is really afraid to speak about. The way that she does it, the playwright Alice Birch, with the text itself, it's very blunt, very unapologetic.
Women for sale, entire woman for sale.
It is the way that it is, and this isn't a matter of opinion. It's just, this is how a world is seen through these people's eyes.
My choice.
Which is really exciting and really frightening at the same time, because then you start to think about what your views on certain things are and what other people might view you, and if their views differ, or at the end of the show when you're done, how will they look at you?
Don't you feel like you've lost all sense on what life is supposed to be?
The way that we speak not only to each other but to the audience, we're speaking to them because more than anything we really want them to start to open their minds and think for themselves too, and stop listening to what other people are telling them, and just really take in everything that's happening and going on around them and analyzing, and then after that coming to their own conclusion as to what is going on, and then acting upon that.
We're telling a story, hey, this is what's going on, this is what we're living through, this is what we are fighting for, and this is how it's working or not working, and this is how we're accepting it or not accepting it.
The following items I refuse to make. Cupcakes, particularly heart-shaped goods.
The play builds to a fever pitch as multiple stories and characters converge in a cacophony of voices.
It's kind of like we're fighting for the attention of the audience. We want our audience to feel that way, to feel like, oh my God, there's so many things going on. What do I listen to? And why am I listening to this and not this? So, I mean, again, our brain kind of wants to cling on to things that we connect with.
It's a play that strips away protective layers to get to raw emotions. And then once the actors, the characters, and the audience are vulnerable, it empowers them to rebuild.
I really appreciate plays that do that, and they don't focus upon, one single narrative and one perspective. It's a play that anyone and everyone can relate to, which really draws me in.
I absolutely believe that this will create conversation, whether you like the play or whether you don't like the play, whether you identify or don't identify. This play is going to present so many topics and so many situations that everyone has an opinion on.
What I want is for people to walk out of the performance and feel this newfound sense of urgency to want to act upon something. I just want them to want to actually, instead of just saying they want to do something, I want them to do it.
That's the best kind of interactive theater. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Revolt, She Said, Revolt Again runs September 13th through the 29th at Diversionary's Black Box Theater. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.